Assalamualaikum class. Today we are having lecture number 19 from chapter number 7. This lecture is about the functional kind of sentences, or we could call it as functional classification as well. See, here we are going to see how different types of sentences are used in our communication. Sometimes we need to introduce something, sometimes we need to inform some other person, sometimes we need to make an interrogation or make a questions. Sometimes we want to express our pleasure or the joy. Sometimes we want to express our anger or the shocks. And sometimes we wish other person, or we could pray for to other person. Fine. And some other time we are going to make some request or the orders. See, these are all different types of emotions which are expressed in our communication in our daily life. And the grammar has given us relaxation in the way that we have been provided with all the types of, we are provided with the convenience of expressing all these emotions through different types of sentences, okay, and which is called as functional kind of sentence. Fine. First, this functional classification is actually divided on the basis of, the first is called declarative. We have also discussed these functional kind of sentences in chapter number 1, but that was just an introduction or with the concerned with the definition. Today we are going to have in detail of this functional classification. The second is called as imperative. The third is called as interrogative. The fourth is called as exclamatory. The fifth is called as optative. And the sixth is called as, optative is actually divided into subjunctive. Subjunctive. And subjunctive is again divided into present subjunctive and past subjunctive. See, we have seen that in the book, we find all these functional kinds of sentences with another topic, mood of the verb. Actually, these all types of functional kinds of sentences also represent the different moods of verbs. For example, if declarative sentence is there, what do we mean by declarative? By declarative, we mean that whenever we declare an information, we declare our feelings, we express our emotions, that is called as declarative sentence. And these emotions and feelings and this type of sentence, which we call declarative, we also call it that mood of the verb in this sentence is to deliver the information. So the mood of the word is also getting declarative, is also sharing information, is also expressing the emotions and feelings. Fine. If we see that how declarative sentences are constructed, we see, he is a good teacher. This is an information. She is a doctor by profession. These are different informations. That might be positive, which is called as affirmative, and that might include the negative sentences as well. Fine. Students are not attentive. This is the negative information. But this is an information, and that the declarative sentences includes both types of information, affirmative or positive, as well as the negative information. And both of these types of sentences are called as declarative sentence. So what is basically the identification of this type of sentence? This is called a sentence could always start with the capital letter and would finish with the full stop. Starting with the capital letter and finishing with the full stop. That is the basic identification of declarative sentences, and it must be having an information in it which might be positive or the negative. Fine. And this declarative sentence is also called as when the declarative mood of the verb. Why? Because the verb is getting the mood of the verb is giving the information. Okay. Now we move on to the imperative sentence. What do we mean by imperative sentence? Whenever a sentence discloses order, command, order or command, that means the same, or request, that is called as imperative sentence. All these sentences, what is the structure of imperative sentence? Imperative sentence always begins the first verb form. Always begin with the first verb form. Okay? Subject is always missing in imperative sentences. It starts with the first verb form. Shut the door. Fine. And how is it is closed? It might be closed with full stop, or it might be closed with sign of exclamation. Fine. Why? Because there are different marks of punctuation in the grammar. This is called full stop. Full stop shows the regular emotions. The emotions whenever an information is closed with regular feelings, with moderate feelings, that is called as full stop. On the other hand, this is called as sign of exclamation. Sign of exclamation always represent which types of thought? The thoughts which are above average. Okay, they are called as exclamatory sentences. This is called as sign of. This is what is the representation of sign of exclamation. So this is called an imperative sentence. How come? Because it is starting with the first verb form, and it might close with the full stop and the sign of exclamation. It might be this is a command or order. This is an example of imperative sentence which is showing order. We could always have it. Help. Please help me. This please is showing the request mode of the sentence. Okay? And it is actually the imperative sentence. Okay, starting with the first verb form and ending with full stop as well as the sign of exclamation. In imperative, you have the option of closing the sentence with full stop or with the sign of exclamation. So, imperative sentences represent order, command, and request, and it always start with the first verb form and end with the full stop and sign of exclamation. Now we move on to interrogative sentences. What do we mean by interrogative sentences? A sentence which raises a question, that is called as interrogative sentence. Which raise questions. Fine. And it is also known as interrogative mood of the verb. that the verb is getting to ask or the verb is raising a question, and that is called as interrogative sentence. Fine. We could always make a declarative sentence into interrogative sentence. For example, he walks. This was an declarative sentence. Does he walk? Here, what is the structure or identification of interrogative sentence? It starts with the verb or helping verb and closes with the sign of interrogation. Fine. An interrogative sentence would always close with the sign of interrogation and it would raise a question. Okay? This is called interrogative sentence. And interrogative, we see there are three types of interrogative sentences. The book has disclosed or revealed or expressed or introduced three types of interrogative sentences. That is called polar, non-polar, and rhetoric. What do we mean by polar? All the questions which could be answered with yes or no, like which could be answered with one word of yes or the other word of no. Non-polar questions which need a detailed answer. And rhetoric questions which are introduced to, which are used to introduce a topic rather than to get an answer, for getting an answer. They are called a rhetoric question. We'll see one by one the example of it. Do you go to school regularly? I could always answer it with yes or no. Do you go to school regularly? You could answer yes or no of your choice or according to the fact. Okay? What is your name? This is an example of polar question. What is your name? Could you answer it with yes or no? You can never answer it with yes or no. Okay? Fine. You could only answer it with yes or no whenever you don't understand the language. Fine. Maybe you are from China and you wanted, anybody is going to ask you what is your name, you do not understand the language, so then you must be answering with yes or no because you only know two words from English language, yes or no. Okay, fine. So you must be needing a detailed answer. You must answer it with Farhan or Zishan or whosoever the person is. Okay, this is an example of non-polar question. Rhetoric question. These are types of questions which are basically used by the teachers or different program conductors who wanted to raise different questions in the mind of the audience, and they do not need the answers from the audience. Rather, they are giving the different line of thoughts to the audience, and they themselves would be describing those particular questions in their discussion. For example, rhetoric questions. For example, if a teacher wanted to explain the topic of sentence, okay, and he asks his students the questions, do you know about sentences? What are different types of sentences? Is there any relationship? Any relationship between mood of verb and functional classification of sentence? These are all different types of questions which a teacher might be asking you, not for the sake of getting an answers, rather he is pointing them out to give you different lines of thoughts to discuss about the sentence. So rhetoric questions are not used for the sake of question, rather they are introduced for giving an answers by the caller himself. Okay, whoever is calling these sentences, he would himself would be giving an answer of it rather than getting an answer from the audience. Okay, these types of questions are introduced by the teachers or different seminar who are conducting a seminars to give a line of thought to the audience or the students. Okay, this was all with the interrogative sentences. An interrogative sentence is a sentence which raises the questions, start with a helping verb or modal verb and closes with sign of interrogation. Now we move on to other type of sentence that is called as exclamatory. Exclamatory sentences, as the name represents, it must be showing an exclamation or expression of abrupt feelings. By abrupt feelings we means exclamation of abrupt thoughts or feelings. Which type of feeling? Feelings of pleasure or joy, sorrow or anger. Fine. And shock or disbelief. Whenever we have exaggerated or above average the emotions, we express them in the form of exclamatory sentences. Fine. What about the structure of these sentences? They could start with interjection, hurrah, Pakistan win the match. Okay, they could start with interjection or how beautiful the weather is. What a lovely scene. Or they could be used with the words how and what, and they could be used with the beginning of the interjections or addition of interjections. This is the structure of exclamatory sentence. But one thing is common in all the sentences, that they all must be having a sign of exclamation in them. So an exclamatory sentence is a sentence which represent our exaggerated or above average thoughts of pleasure or joy, sorrow or anger, and disbelief or shock. For example, the example of shock or disbelief is, or wonder is, how long the train was. This is an example of shock. This is an example of wonder or disbelief. Okay, this was all with the exclamatory sentences. Now we move on to optative sentences. Optative sentences. What do we mean by optative sentences? Whenever the verb has the mood to pray or wish, it is called optative sentence. A sentence which represents pray or wish, they are called optative. And the mood of the verb is also known as optative mood of the verb. Okay, how they are constructed? They also start, may you live long, wish you good health. Fine. These are the examples of optative sentences. They might be closed with full stop as well as they might be closed with sign of exclamation. Whenever you are wishing other person heartily wish, you could always close it with the sign of exclamation. Or whenever you are just wishing on average or medium base, you could always close it with the full stop. This is optative sentence. One of the branch of optative sentences is this, that sometimes we have the wishes or the prayers that might happen, and that particular name is called subjunctive. It is actually one of the sub-branch of optative sentence, which is known as subjunctive. What do we mean by subjunctive? By subjunctive, we mean whenever we have something possible, like whenever we have a wish that might happen. Fine, that is called as present subjunctive. A wish which we might have, that might happen, that is called present subjunctive. And a wish that could not happen, as we have seen in second conditional sentence, we had some wishes which we could not fulfill. They are called as that hypothetical. What do we mean by hypothetical? Which could only be thought of, which are not possible to happen. They are called as hypothetical, and that is called as past subjunctive. Okay, this is called, what is the God save the Queen? I am wishing, fine. I am praying that God saves the Queen. Okay, fine. That is called as present subjunctive. A wish that is possible, that might happen. On the other hand, what is hypothetical? If I were taller. Fine. A wish which is not possible, or which is about the past happening. Fine. That is called as past subjunctive. So subjunctive is actually one of the idea of, or one of the sub branch of optative, in which we have two types of wishes. One of the wishes that might happen, that are possible. For example, we have seen in first conditional sentence that we talk about the things which might happen. And past subjunctive, they represent the second conditional sentence, wherever we are thinking about we are getting nostalgic and we are thinking about the past, the things that could not happen, fine, they are called as past subjunctive and present subjunctive. This was all with the functional kind of sentences. In chapter number 1, we have an idea of all these types of sentences, but here we have seen that we have in detail of these type functional kind of sentences. We have seen how, what do they represent, what thoughts do they represent, and how they are constructed. We have seen the function as well as the structure combined by in one topic. Okay. In this part of the sentence, this part topic that goes from page number 290 to 293 of your text ICAP textbook from chapter number 7. Okay, we are left with one of the topic in chapter number 7 that is called as punctuation, the use of different punctuation marks. In chapter number 9, in lecture number 19, we'll be having in detail about this topic, how different punctuation marks are used in grammar and what are different roles of these what do they represent in the grammar as well, where they are required and where they are missed or avoided. Okay, and then this chapter also includes about narration and the voice. We also will be doing in detail about the narration and the voice in the lecture number 21 and 22. See you tomorrow, inshallah.